Good morning, first graders. It's Miss Graham again, ready to start another week of virtual learning. This week we're going to be practicing the ER and EST sounds that we put at the end of our words. And so that will be what our spelling words are for this week, and we'll go over those in just a little bit. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to practice some of our blending. So I'm going to say some blends, and you blend with me, okay? T, n, turn. E, funny. E, silly. P, bump. Field. Okay, dang. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at some syllables. Now, I'm going to say a word and we're going to clap its syllables. I want you to listen. Faster, faster. Faster has two syllables. It has the word fast, and then is the second syllable. Okay, listen and say this one. Fastest, fastest, fast, est. Okay, two syllables. Now, I want you to clap with me this time, and I want you to tell me how many syllables you hear. Listen. Harder, harder. Two syllables. Very good. Now, hardest, hardest. Very good. Two syllables. Busier, busier. How many did you hear in that one? Three. Biz, Jumpy, jumpy. Two syllables, jump and E. Sillier, sillier. Three syllables, sillier. Okay. Silliest, silliest. Three syllables, silliest. Two more. Colder, colder. Colder. Two syllables. Chillier, chillier. Three syllables. Chillier. Okay? Very good. Now, all of the words that we had ER and EST added to the end of the word. So that's what we're going to be practicing today, is the sounds for ER and EST. We write these sounds at the end of a word when we want to compare the word. Okay? So we add ER when we're comparing two things, and we add EST if we're comparing three or more things. I have the word happy here. Now, I'm going to show you a trick about the word happy. Happy is the base word, and it can have the letters ER added to show that you are comparing something. Okay? The word happy, it ends with a Y though. Remember how we learned last week that a Y stands for the E or the I sound when it's at the end of a word? Happy. So this has a Y that makes an E sound at the end. Before we can add an ending to our word, we have to do something with this Y. Whenever we have a word that ends with a Y at the end, we have to change our Y to something else before we add our ending. So if I just put ER at the end of this word, happier, something doesn't look right about this word. We have to change part of the word so that it looks right. So whenever we have a word that ends with a Y, we're going to take that Y and we're going to change it to an I. So it's happy with an I, and then we're going to add ER to the ending. Happy with an I, and then Now it says happier. Okay? We do the same thing if we want to add EST to the ending. Let's erase this and let's practice happy again. But this time, instead of ER, let's add EST to the ending. Now, we can't just put EST here because we have to change this Y. Do you remember what we just did with this Y? Right. We have to take this Y off and we change it to what letter? To an I. Very good. And now we have the word happy with an I at the end. And then we're going to add E-S-T. So now it says happy-est. Happiest. Okay. So we're going to be practicing a few more words like this later on. And we'll be looking at how they are read in our words. And we're going to change the Y to an I before we add our endings. We're going to practice some of our base words, and we're going to add an ER or an EST to the end of each word to make a new word. Remember, whenever a word ends with a Y, what do we have to change it to before we can put the ending on there? Right, we have to change this Y to an I. So let's look at this first word. This is the base word. Let's see what it says. This is the letter L that says ul together, and Y at the end says E. So we have silly. Silly means something is funny. All right, so we're going to change silly to say sillier and silliest. But we have to do something to this Y before we can do that. We're going to change the Y to an I. So let's write the word silly with an I. And then we're going to add our ER sound to the end. So now we have sillier. Okay? And then we're going to do the same thing to add EST. We're going to write silly with an I at the end. And then we're going to add EST. So what word did we make? Silliest. Silly, sillier, silliest. Okay, let's look at the next word. Sunny, sunny. Okay, we're going to change sunny to sunnier and sunniest. But before we can change the word sunny, we have to take the Y off. And what are we going to add? We're going to change it to an I. Very good. So now we have sunny with an I. So let's write that part. Sunny with an I instead of a Y, and then we're going to add ER. Now we have sunnier, sunnier. Now we're going to write sunny, and we're going to add EST to the end. So first we write sunny with an I, and then we add EST. So now we have sunniest. Sunniest. And the last word we're going to practice is messy. Let's spell messy. M-E-S-S-Y. Okay, so we want to change messy and add ER to the end so it says messier and then messiest. What do we have to do to the word messy before we can add this ER ending? Very good. We have to change the Y to an I. So we're going to write messy with an I, messy with an I, and then we can add ER. What word did we make? Messier. Now we're going to write messy again. We're going to put an I on the end instead of a Y. Messy with an I. Sorry about that. We were writing messy with an I, and then we're going to add EST to the end of it. What word did we make? Messiest. Okay, very good, first grade. So this is something that you're going to have on your spelling words this week. Most of your spelling words, you're going to add an ER or an EST to the end, and we have to remember that if that base word ends with a Y, you change the Y to an I before you put your ending on. Okay? We're going to practice our sounds now. And if you remember from last week, this was one of the sounds that we learned last week, I-E. And remember, this is superhero E, and she gets mad at superhero I sometimes because he steals her cake. Okay, and we want to make sure that she gives him cookies so that she can say her name instead of him saying his name. So when two letters go walking, sometimes the first one does the talking, but in this case she feeds him cookies so that she can do the talking, and it says E. And then we have this one that Mr. Bailey taught you about, and sometimes Y says E and sometimes Y says I. So when we see this one, we're going to say sometimes I, sometimes E. So we're going to go back and we're going to start from the beginning. Remember, sound, E. Sound, sometimes Y, sometimes I, sometimes E. Sound, ow. Sound, A. Sound, I. Sound, sometimes I, sometimes E. Sound, aw. Sound, sometimes I, sometimes E. Sound, sometimes I, sometimes E. Sound, aw. Sound, oi. Sound, sometimes I, sometimes E. Sound, oi. Sound, k. Sound, sometimes I, sometimes E. Sound, sometimes I, sometimes E. Okay, boys and girls, let's read some words that have the ER and EST endings. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, when we get to a word with an ending on it, we cover it up like this and we find the base word. And then we read the base word and then we add the ending back on. So when we look at this first word, we see EST. I'm going to cover up the ending and I see an I at the end. That means there was probably a Y there and they changed it to an I before they added the ending. So I think this word says silly with an I at the end. Silly-est. Silliest. Very good. Now let's look at this word. We're going to cover up that ER ending. There's the same base word again. Silly with an I. So it's silly-er. Word, sillier. Here's our next word. I see an ER ending, so I'm going to cover that up. I see the word grump with an I that makes the E sound because it was a Y before. Grumpy is the base word. Grumpier. Word, grumpier. Same thing, cover up the ending. Here's our base word, grumpy with an I. Grumpy-est. Word, grumpiest. Let's look at the next rep. I see an ER. Now let's look. Here's our vowel sound, I. Chill, E, chilly-er. Chillier. Word, chillier. Here's one. Does this one have an ending? No, it has a Y that might say an I or an E sound. So let's try I first. Funny. Does that make sense? Nope. How about funny? Funny. Word, funny. Look here. This one looks very familiar. Let's cover up the ending. Here's our base word. It's funny with an I at the end. Why does it have an I at the end? Because there was a Y in the base word, changed it to an I. So funny-er. Word, funnier. Look at this word. The vowel sound is up, b, p, bumpy. Remember what Mr. Bailey said last week? If it has two syllables, it makes the E sound at the end. Bumpy. Let's cover up this ER ending. Here's bump, and then they changed the Y to an I. Bumpy. bumpier. Word, bumpier. Let's look at this one. That's 2 syllables. Here's the first syllable, silly, silly. Word, silly. Next one, sunny, sunny. Word, sunny. Look at the vowel sound in this one, Word, turn. Vowel sound, sound, b, earn. Word, burn. Vowel sound, r, blend, sh, arc. Word, shark. Here's our new vowel sound from last week. Vowel sound, e, blend, ild. Word, field. Last one, 2 syllables. First syllable, j, all. Last syllable, li, jolly. Word, jolly.